Hello, everyone, and welcome. Can you hear us? Do a quick mic check to start off. Should be a questions or a chat box down there. If you can hear us, please type in yes. Cool. Well, we're gonna give it maybe another 30 seconds to a minute. Let people join. Everyone can see my screen. All right, let's get this thing going. So thanks again to everyone for joining myself and John Bria from the CME. This is going to be an introduction to the CME Group Micro Bitcoin Futures. Let's see here. So first things first. The risk of trading futures and options can be substantial. Trading derivatives carries a high degree of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. And then, since we're talking about it, I gotta state it. EdgeClear is a member of the NFA and is subject to NFA regulatory oversight and examinations. However, you should be aware that the NFA does not have regulatory oversight authority over underlying or spot virtual currency products or transactions or virtual currency exchanges, custodians, or markets. This is going to be our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the evolution of cryptocurrency, the CME Group Micro Bitcoin product overview, an explanation of Bitcoin reference rate, what it is versus the real-time index, the difference in futures versus spot transaction costs, scaling in and out with micro Bitcoin futures, and how to use micro Bitcoin futures to manage risk. Most of you out there already know who I am or who we are, but my name is Max Timmins. I'm the Director of Brokerage Services at EdgeClear. EdgeClear's objective is to simplify access to the market through outstanding brokerage services and solutions built by a team of award-winning industry experts who also understands the complexities of trading. EdgeClear combines the risk of technology, service, and risk control. Everything that EdgeClear does is trader-inspired. Then I have to add, or I want to add, we just launched a platform out there. It's called Edge Pro X. It's an all-in-one solution for active traders. It has advanced DOM features, MBO capabilities, heat map, volume imprint, large blocks, cross-instrument trading, cloud levels, Edge Pro line. I really wanted to show some data on Edge Pro X. Unfortunately, the data that I was running did not work in my favor, but if you want to sign up for a demo of edgeprox.com, we can most likely get you a demo account where you can see what the micro Bitcoin contract is. That's all we have for you today. So thanks for coming. That's a joke. I like to play that joke when I'm doing a webinar, but I'm going to pass the controls over to John Bria. He's going to be the man that talks about Bitcoin over here. So John, I'm going to pass this to you. Let's see if we can get it right this time. All right, it should be in your court.
Max, I don't have that share button.
All right, let's try this one.
Try that again.
Yep. How about now? Wait, hold on a second. Yep. How about now?
Still no share button.
Is there something in the middle of the screen that kind of says show my screen?
Nope. No.
All right, let's do this. Sorry, folks, we're getting there. How about now, John?
Here we go. We got it.
Awesome. Technical difficulties?
It's not a webinar unless you have a couple technical difficulties to work through.
Absolutely.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can. Can everyone else see it? Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. We're here today to talk about the launch of the micro Bitcoin futures contracts by CME Group. Let's see. There we go. We have a disclaimer here at the CME Group as well. I want to point out that futures and options on futures are not suitable products for all investors. These are leverage products. We will be discussing leverage products that each involve the risk of loss. So when you're evaluating a new product or a new market, please be sure to do all of your research and your homework so you're best prepared going into that new product or market. And if you're looking for any educational content, you can go to cmegroup.com, and if you click on education on the banner, you can find our CME Institute, where we have a whole catalog of educational information, all for free too. So you can never learn too much about these products. So if you're looking for information, you can consult the cmegroup.com website. So we're going to talk about micro Bitcoin futures, and we're going to start with some really exciting metrics. We launched these products, as some of you may know. We launched the micro Bitcoin futures on Sunday night. So this past Sunday night on the open, these products were launched, and we had an enormous day one yesterday. This is the third largest product launch in the history of CME Group, just behind the micro equities that launched back in May of 2019, and then the E-mini S&P futures that launched back in 1997. So yesterday's metrics, here you see on the slide, they really did blow away some of our expectations at the exchange. And yesterday we saw just over 7,400 micro Bitcoin futures contracts traded, and we saw a little over 1,500 contracts in open interest. We saw some really good participation. The average trade size was 3 micro Bitcoin contracts. And what I really want to highlight down here, and again, we're gonna pick this up on a couple slides, but this Bitcoin trading story at CME Group is really proving to be global. And you'll see that last bullet here. There's healthy participation across all 3 regions. So you see 50% of the volume yesterday came through the regular trading hours, but we had volume coming through APAC trading hours, we had volume coming through EMEA trading hours, and yesterday we saw over 240 unique accounts participate in the day one volume. So we're very excited.
I think you guys tripled it today too.
Yeah, as of the start of this, right, at the start of this, I think we were almost at 2,200 contracts traded, which is great because we surpassed that 100 million mark in notional Bitcoin traded today. So I think that checks out to a little over 116 million notional Bitcoin traded today. So we're very, very, very excited about this launch. All right, so we broke out the agenda. Max went over it previously. We broke it out into 3 parts today. Part 1, we're going to discuss crypto and the crypto futures background at CME Group. Part 2, we're going to talk about the futures fundamentals and the benefits that micro Bitcoin futures offer the active individual trading community. And part 3, we're going to look at specific scenarios that traders should be aware of and how they can use the micro Bitcoin futures to take advantage of some of these different trading techniques. All right, so part 1. What's the story on Bitcoin and micro Bitcoin futures at CME Group, and how did the exchange get to this point? So as an exchange, we embrace innovation, we embrace change, and we wouldn't be where we're at today without embracing change and innovation. And we listen to our customers, and we rely on our customers to provide feedback and tell us where we need to go in terms of product. And back in 2016, our clients were coming to us and telling us, you have to look at Bitcoin, you have to look at cryptocurrency. There needs to be a futures and options on futures products on these emerging asset classes. So where we're at today, I think it's undeniable that we're in a very low interest rate environment. And over the last 14 plus months, there's been this massive monetary stimulus cash injection that's has all this money sitting on the sideline, and they're looking to put this money to work, and they're looking for the best opportunities to put that money to work. And so some of that money today we're seeing going into these alternative asset classes, such as cryptocurrency. So that played into how we're getting here today. Also, cryptocurrency is rapidly earning this reputation that it's a digital gold. Gold isn't going away. Gold's been around for centuries. It's been a safe haven asset. And we're going to go over the market share of gold in a couple of slides. But we are seeing cryptocurrency take on some of those characteristics of gold, and people are using it as that inflationary hedge. And then also we're seeing, I feel like every day we're seeing a new institution come out and support Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, whether they're using them, whether using the blockchain technology, whether they're using or accepting Bitcoin as payments, or there's some wirehouses and banks that are now offering cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular to their high net worth individuals as investment products. And the underlying blockchain technology is really gaining widespread acceptance globally. So that's really lending some support to the rise in this cryptocurrency phenomena that we've seen over the past decade-ish. And then when you look at the astronomical returns that Bitcoin and Ethereum have had since, I think it was September of last year, when we really started to see that parabolic rise in price, traders and investors are savvy, and they're always looking for the best opportunity and the price action, right? And so this price increase dating back to September of 2020 is really, price increase in Ethereum and Bitcoin in particular is really starting to attract a lot of investors and traders. Oh. Did it just go off full screen for you?
You just got to start it up again. Yeah.
All right, let's get that.
There you go. You're good. Oh, there. No, not again.
I don't know what's going on here.
Resume slideshow at the top. Do you click that?
Yeah, it's my mouse won't get there.
Can you exit out of that?
There we go.
Cool.
We're back. All right, sorry about that. All right, so let's take a look at the cryptocurrency landscape in relation to other asset classes. And we put this slide together back in January of this year. So the figures are a little bit out of date because of all that price accumulation on the Bitcoin and Ethereum side. So you'll see gold all the way toward the left. Gold is enormous, has a market cap of $10 trillion. But when you look at cryptocurrency today, with the price appreciation that we've seen this year, all cryptocurrencies today have a market cap of almost $1 trillion. So, I'm sorry, of almost $2 trillion. So the cryptocurrency market cap is the same size of all the USD in circulation today. And Bitcoin is now about 40% of that 2 trillion. So cryptocurrencies are taking a little bit of that market share from gold. And then when you look at how big this new market is, when you compare it to Apple, it's almost the same size as Apple. When you compare it to all the USD in circulation, it's the same size as that. It's bigger than Amazon. So it really is, it's been really cool to watch the rise in this asset class and see how much this thing has grown in such a short period of time. And then here's a quick slide on the top 10 currencies, cryptocurrencies by market cap. And you see Bitcoin is the largest all the way to the left, and that market cap is a little out of date, but Bitcoin is still the largest, and Ethereum is the second largest. And the CME Group, we offer futures and options contracts on Bitcoin, and we offer futures on Ethereum. And now as of Sunday night, we offer a micro Bitcoin contract, which we'll go into all the product specs in a little bit and talk about what this contract looks like. All right, so a little little more background on the evolution of cryptocurrencies. I alluded to it before. We really started as an exchange to get into cryptocurrency back in 2016. And what we did back then is we created two data products. We didn't create the futures in 2017, but in 2016, we created these data products that would give the futures market some transparency into the actual price of where the cash Bitcoin was trading. Because there's all these different cash cryptocurrencies out there. Cash crypto exchanges out there, right? And some of these exchanges have a different price displayed than another exchange, right? So what we did in 2016, we created a Bitcoin reference rate, which takes the flow from the top 5 cryptocurrency cash exchanges. So it aggregates the flow from those top 5 exchanges, and it creates a blended Bitcoin price to give the futures industry a blended and what we feel is a more transparent and accurate price into that cash product. So we created that Bitcoin reference rate back in 2016, and this reference rate is still in effect today. We post it once a day between 4 and 4:30 London time. And we post it on our website, and you can subscribe to it if you'd like. And back then, we also created a Bitcoin real-time rate, which is posted at every second of every day, including weekends and holidays, on our site right next to the Bitcoin reference rate. And we post that real-time rate the same, or we construct the real-time rate the same way that we construct the reference rate, where we take the supply and demand from the top 5 cash exchanges and create this aggregate transparent price. So that was our first foray back into 2016. In December of 2017, we launched our legacy Bitcoin futures contract. This is a larger contract, which at the time when Bitcoin was trading at around 20,000 in 2017, it had a notional value of $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. So it was a large product back then. It's an even larger product now. We launched that in 2017, and it's really starting to gain some traction over the last 6-7 months or so, and we'll go over some of that in a bit. And then in 2018, we created an Ether dollar reference rate and an Ether real-time index, just the same as we did for the Bitcoin. And then in 2020, last year, we launched the options on our Bitcoin futures contract. In February of this year, we launched our Ether futures contract. And these Ether futures have exposure, or have an underlying exposure to 50 Ether. And then today, we're all here today to talk about the micro Bitcoin futures. They were launched on Sunday night for Monday's trade date. Go through some of that. Okay, so here's how we display the Bitcoin reference rate and the real-time index on our website. And if you can go to cmegroup.com, and if you just type in Bitcoin, it will take you to our Bitcoin page, and you can see this reference rate and the real-time index. And there is an option on there. If you do want to subscribe to that, you can subscribe to these data sets. And this is through cmegroup.com. Okay, so let's take a look at how our Bitcoin futures and options products, of the legacy ones, the big contract that's worth 5 underlying Bitcoin, how these have kind of taken shape over the last 2 years, or year and a half, I should say. So in 2020, the big Bitcoin contract averaged a little over 87 contracts a day, which is almost 44,000 equivalent Bitcoin. And last year, we were up 38% compared to 2019. And when you look at Bitcoin just in Q1 of 2021, where we're up to almost 13,000, almost 13,500 contracts a day on the big Bitcoin contract, which is over 67,000 Bitcoin equivalent. And on the right-hand side, like I said in that first slide, what we're seeing here at the exchange is that this cryptocurrency market is truly a global market. And it's not unique to the micro contracts that we launched 2 days ago. We saw it in this big Bitcoin contract that we already had existing. So if you look all the way to the right-hand column, trades originating from outside of the United States on the Bitcoin futures contract, 36% of those came from outside of the United States, spanning 90 different countries. And then when you look at the options on the big Bitcoin, 19% of that volume is coming from outside of the States. And that's through 15 different countries. So this is truly a global market that we're really starting to see take shape and really mature into a real substantial market at CME Group. Okay, so here's just a graphical view of the price action in Bitcoin. And you see, we said before, it really started taking off in September. And in September, it took off and it really hasn't looked back. Now I think we're hovering right around 54,000 and change today. But look, it came from 10,000 back in September, and it's up to 54,000 today. It's really, really astounding to watch and see. And same thing on Ether. So it wasn't unique to Bitcoin. Ether took off back in September. And in this graph, it says that it's at 1,925. And I think Ether's trading around 3,000 and change right now.
Yeah.
So, right? 3,000-ish.
Around there.
So Ether took off as well. And it's wild. So here's the growth of our Bitcoin futures. And we just went over it. This is just a graphical view to show how our average daily volume and our open interest in our legacy Bitcoin futures contract has really progressed since launch in December 17th. So you can see here, it's progressed nicely, and it's now almost 50,000 contracts of equivalent of Bitcoin. And then here's a graph that shows the growth in our large open interest holders. And so if anybody's holding over 25 contracts of our large Bitcoin futures contract, we have to report that to the regulators. So what that is telling us, that if somebody's holding 25 contracts in our big Bitcoin contract, they're most likely an institutional trader or an institution using these products to spec or to hedge. So what we're seeing, or what we're learning from this information, is that the Bitcoin markets at CME Group are not just retail, they're not just prop, but there's institutions that are coming to our markets using these products, and this information tells us just that. And so here's the Bitcoin competitive landscape breakdown. We're not the only exchange that offers a cryptocurrency derivative. CBOE and Bakkt have another product as well. But what you can see here is that we really do have a majority of the volume and the participation in this cryptocurrency derivative market. So the industry, or the retail industry, the institutional industry, they're coming to our markets and they're using our products to trade cryptocurrency derivatives. Okay, so going into part two, what we want to look at here, I know that many people on this call already know the breakdown and the fundamentals of futures, but what we want to show here is just how the futures products, these micro Bitcoin futures products in particular, are different than the cash Bitcoin products. So here's a look at the contract specs on the micro Bitcoin product. So the contract size of this micro product is 1/10 of one coin. Or another way to think about it is 1/50th of our standard Bitcoin futures contract. Because remember, our standard Bitcoin futures contract is made up of 5 coins. This micro contract is 1/10 of one Bitcoin.
Hey, John, I got a question for you, if you don't mind. Why would the CME, or I guess, is there logic behind going from a 5 Bitcoin futures contract, which is very hard for a normal retail trader to trade, all the way to a micro? Is there a plan to possibly add a 1 Bitcoin contract? It seems like an aggressive move down to a micro, which I'm not saying I think it's a great move, but is there plans for a 1 Bitcoin contract?
So yeah, it's a really good question, because you'd think that the logical next progression is a mini, right? Maybe a one coin contract.
Yeah,
but,
this is almost like the S&P big contract all the way down to the micro.
Exactly, 100%. Why we went the micro route is because our retail partners saw or see the growth in the retail side on the cash Bitcoin market, right? So, like I was saying before, we really do rely on our partners to tell us where the opportunities are and what we really need to do. Once we get that feedback from our clients, then we go and we talk internally. We put the analysis together, we vet out a product, and we came to the conclusion that there is an opportunity for a micro Bitcoin contract now because of the rise in that retail trader that we've seen over the last 12, 18 months. And that's why we went right to the micro route.
Got it.
So the notional value on this micro contract is going to be 1/10 of where Bitcoin's trading at, right? So if Bitcoin's trading at $59,000, you multiply that by 0.1, the notional value of the futures contract is going to be $5,900. So where Bitcoin's trading today at 54,000, notional on that is going to be $5,400. And then the minimum price fluctuation, so the tick value, this ticks in, it's $5 per Bitcoin, and the tick value is 50 cents per contract. And then the trading hours are the same as most of our other standard futures contracts. The futures markets open Sunday night at 5 p.m. Central Time. They close at Friday, 4 p.m. Central Time. There is a 60-minute break each day at the beginning of 4 p.m. Central Time. That's when we run our batches and we send all of our order flow to our FCMs so it can be cleared. And then the listing cycle, these are monthly contracts. So they're going to be listed in the first 6 consecutive months and the nearest 2 December contracts. And then this is what I really want to highlight this next row. Final settlement. These are cash settled products. These futures don't physically settle into a Bitcoin. And I can't stress that enough. These are financially or cash settled products, and they're settled to that reference rate that we talked about previously. And they settle on the last Friday of the contract month. So here, basic future fundamentals. Remember, these are futures products, so they do have expiration. These aren't finite products. And as they're monthly products, we want to be cognizant as we're approaching that last trading day. We want to watch the volumes roll from that front month to the next sequential month. And we want to remember, if you're holding a position in this micro Bitcoin futures contract and you don't want it to expire and you wanted to keep that exposure going into the next sequential month, you're going to want to roll that position. And you want to roll that position before all that volume transfers to that next sequential market, because you never want to get caught in an illiquid market. So just as a reminder, remember there are 2 things that happen when a futures contract expire. And I guess they differ a little bit between physical and cash. Remember, physical is when you actually could gain physical exposure or you could take physical delivery if you're trading corn. But since these are cash settled, here are the 2 things that you want to remember that could happen as expiration approaches. If you didn't want to roll that contract, you can allow that futures contract to expire. And remember, these are cash settled. So after that expiration, the trader is no longer going to have a position or exposure in Bitcoin once you let it expire and it cash settles. Or, like we were saying before, you can roll that position to the next month if you want to keep that exposure to the micro Bitcoin market. And here's just a graphical look at how that volume starts shifting, or when that volume starts shifting from that front month to the next sequential month. So if you look at that black line here, that looks that's the volume in the November Bitcoin contract, right? At the beginning of November, you see it going up and down, fluctuating nicely. Then once you get closer to that last trading day, so closer to the last week of November, nearing December, you see that pretty dramatic drop in volume. So that's showing all the volume is leaving that November contract. And then you see the rise on the blue line, that rise in volume in that December contract. So it's showing people are rolling from the November contract to the December contract. So you just want to be cognizant of when that volume starts shifting so you don't get caught in an illiquid market if you want to roll. Okay, so here, how much is one micro Bitcoin futures contract worth? Remember, these are worth 1/10 of one Bitcoin. So the notional exposure of one micro Bitcoin futures contract is going to be 1/10 of where the cash is trading. So in this example, if Bitcoin Cash was trading at $63,000, one micro Bitcoin contract would have a notional exposure of $6,300. And then remember, margin has a different meaning in futures. It's not like the Reg T margin in stocks. Margin in futures is a performance bond. It's a good faith deposit for you to take that position in this futures contract. And then, can I short micro Bitcoin futures? Yes, 100%. That's, in my opinion, one of the biggest advantages of the futures markets, and in particular, this micro Bitcoin futures contract. You can go short Bitcoin just as easy as you can go long. And it's very easy in a futures market to go short. And it's a little more difficult to go short on the cash market. You need to find a platform, you need to find an exchange that will allow you to do that. But with our new micro Bitcoin futures, you can go short just as easy as you can go long, right? You just sell instead of buy. And then some more benefits of the micro Bitcoin futures. Again, you can trade a slice of our Bitcoin futures contract. Our current contracts a big contract is worth 5 Bitcoin. So this micro contract is worth 1/50th of that bigger contract size. Price discovery and transparency. This, in my opinion, is a really important one, because these contracts trade on a regulated exchange. Right? Some of those other cash exchanges, they're still in flux. The regulation is still in flux. So when you look at your order book, when you look at your EdgeClear platform, the price that you see on that screen is the same price that I'm going to see on my screen, or someone else is going to see on their screen, because everything is traded through this central limit order book, right? And since these are FIFO markets, if you place the trade before somebody else, even if it's a prop or an institutional client, the matching engine gets that message first, you're going to get that price. So price discovery and transparency on a regulated market, in my opinion, is a really big advantage. And then, since these are a smaller contract, you can precisely scale your Bitcoin exposure. You can scale in, you can scale out. We're going to talk about that in a few slides. And then the capital efficiencies that futures offer, when you compare them to the cash market, we feel that the capital efficiencies of these new micro Bitcoin futures products are really empowering many different types of investors and traders to come in and gain exposure without tying up large portions of their capital. All right, so let's just take a quick look on the difference between our micro contract in Bitcoin and our standard contract. The micro is 1/10 of one coin. The Bitcoin's 5 Bitcoin. Ticker on the micro is MBT. The standard is BTC. Notional is 5,900 in this example, 5,900 versus 295,000. The tick size is the same. It's $5 a coin, but since the different size in the contract, the micro tick size or dollar value for tick is 50 cents, and the large is $25. And then everything else is the same. Trading hours the same. They're both monthly contracts. They're both cash settled contracts. They terminate on the last Friday of every contract month. and they settle to that Bitcoin reference rate. And then this is really a Bitcoin presentation, so I'm going to quickly go over the Ether futures specs. I'm not going to spend too much time. Remember, the Ether futures are worth 50 Ether per contract. The ticker on them is ETH. They are monthly contracts as well, and these are financially settled on the last Friday of the trading month, and they settle to that Ether reference rate. Okay, so Bitcoin margins versus micro Bitcoin margins. So when you're looking at the initial margin requirement for the micro Bitcoin contract, it's going to be 1/50th of our standard contract. So in this example, if the margin on our standard Bitcoin contract was $106,989, the margin rate on the micro contract is a little over $2,000. So if you wanted to calculate what the margin requirement set at the exchange is for the micro contract, the micro Bitcoin contract, you can take a look at our website and get the margin rate from the site. Or if you wanted to do some math, it's 1/50th of where the standard contract is trading. And then here's just a look at an order book. This is showing a one tick wide market, right? And remember, these tick in $5 per Bitcoin. So you see a bid-ask spread of 57,250 by 57,255. So remember, one tick is 50 cents per contract. And then we're just highlighting some Bitcoin futures and Ether futures versus their cash equivalent, and what some of the differences are here. In the futures market, when you're trading cryptocurrency through CME Group, you don't require a wallet. On the cash side, a wallet is required in most cases. There are capital efficiencies that are afforded on the future side, whereas on the spot market side, there are not. We are a regulated market at CME Group, and the regulation is still in flux on the cash crypto side. There are some potential tax advantages when you're trading futures. Remember, futures adhere to that 1256 tax code, where they're taxed at a blended rate, a blended long-term, short-term capital gains tax rate. So they could potentially be tax advantageous, whereas the spot market, I feel like the taxes are still in flux as well. So I don't know what those taxes are like yet. There's a central clearinghouse at the CME Group that clears all trades that are executed on our matching engine, whereas the spot market there are a bunch of different exchanges, and there may not be the clearinghouse risk mitigation that the CME offers. We've been in business for over 170 years, whereas the cryptocurrency landscape is relatively new, less than a decade old, maybe a decade now. And then the ability to go short on the futures side is much, much easier and simpler than going short on the cash side. Okay, so here's an example of the spot market versus the futures market and the difference in transaction costs. So with the micro Bitcoin contract, the transaction costs that you're going to incur are the exchange fee, the NFA fee, plus whatever commission your broker puts on top, right? But on the cryptocurrency cash side, most exchanges charge a percentage per transaction fee. And in this scenario, you'll see there's an example here that shows a crypto exchange that charges a 1.5% fee on that trade. So if you were to trade the equivalent of one micro Bitcoin contract on the cash side, when the cash is trading at $62,000 per Bitcoin, so the purchase price on a micro Bitcoin equivalent of cash would be $6,200 worth of Bitcoin. And then that crypto exchange fee would be, remember, it's a 1.5%. So that crypto exchange fee in this scenario would be $92. So your all-in cost to buy $6,200 worth of Bitcoin, which is the micro Bitcoin futures equivalent, is $6,292. And remember, those fees can really eat into some of your profits. And then another difference that we want to point out is the difference in bid offer spread. And that could be a major cost as well. Sometimes when you're looking at a cash market, you might see one price on the screen, you go to place a trade to buy it, and then right away you'll see that price jump pretty substantially. Whereas when you're looking at our futures contract and our futures markets, you're going to see the bid-ask spread right there. And when you go and click on that price, it shouldn't increase so substantially or dramatically. So you want to be cognizant of that when you're looking at a cash market as well. Okay, so getting into part 3, trading micro Bitcoin futures. Let's take a look at a scenario here when this trader is bullish on Bitcoin and they want to buy or go long one micro Bitcoin futures contract. So let's take a look at the scenario and see how this plays out. Trader wants to buy one May micro Bitcoin futures contract on May 3rd when the cash is trading at $59,000. Oh. And the cash is trading at $59,000. So that micro contract has an exposure or a notional, oh boy, sorry about this. Micro Bitcoin futures have a notional exposure of $5,900. Oh. All right, let's try this again. When the next day, that price appreciates up to $61,000. So that trader wants to flatten that position, take their profits. So they're going to sell their micro Bitcoin futures at $61,000, which their micro contract has a notional value of $6,100. So in this trade, regardless of expenses, the profit on this trade is, I'm sorry, not regardless of expenses, but excluding any expenses, the profit is $200. And so let's talk about scaling. And scaling is something that we've seen really prevalently since the launch of our micro equity contracts back in May of 2019. Because back before those micro contracts on the equity side, we were seeing a lot of E-mini traders trade 1 or 2 lots, right? But now that these micro contracts were launched, or when these micro contracts were launched back in 2019, we saw traders trade a handful of contracts, of micro contracts at a time, which was allowing them to scale in and scale out, where they weren't capable of scaling with a 1 or a 2 lot position, right? So here's an example of how a trader is scaling out of a position. So this trader goes long 5 micro Bitcoin contracts at around 56,000. So the price appreciates, this market goes up. They want to lock in some profit, but they don't want to completely flatten their position. They want to maintain some exposure because this person thinks that the price still has a way to go up, right? But they still want to lock in some profit. So here they buy in at 56,000. They sell 3 contracts at 57,600. So to take profits at 57.6, they still maintain a long position of 2, right? So the price keeps going up to 58,000. They want to lock in some more profit. They sell 1 position. Now they're still long 1 because they think that the price still has a ways to go up. Price goes up a little more. They completely flatten their position. So they let their position, they scaled out of their position. They left a portion of the position on to reach a higher profit target. And you can do the same thing on the way down. You can scale into a position. So if you saw that, say you flatten your position up at 58,800 and you want to get in as this thing goes back down, you want to get in at 57.6, you can put in 1 buy at 57.6, but you still think this has ways to go down. If it keeps going down, you can put another contract on at a lower level, and so on and so forth. So the micros really do allow more traders to scale in and scale out than we had previously to the micro launch back in 2019. Okay, so like I said before, we launched micro options back in 2020, so January of 2020. And this is a look at the the Bitcoin options implied volatility since launch. And you'll see in March of 2020, the volatility on our Bitcoin contract spiked up to 180%, right? And then it came back down to earth, and it's been hovering around 60 ever since, until about January of this year. What is going on here? Until January of this year. And then it's come back down a bit. But what this is showing, remember, the options market, what this is showing is what the options market is pricing into the futures market on the price side. So when you look at the volatility percentile ranking and you look at that 50th percentile, which was right around that 66% mark, one standard deviation move is almost 2,500 index points on Bitcoin. And so that's a 50 tick move in the Bitcoin market. So what this is telling us is that the Bitcoin contract that we offer is one of our most volatile contracts. And where there's price action and all this volatility, there's ample trading opportunity. But we do want to be cognizant where all of this volatility is and where all this opportunity is, that does bring a good amount of risk. So we always want to maintain risk levels that are comfortable for us, and we want to keep an eye on where we're at all times. And so, segueing forward, risk mitigation and CME clearing, we have a clearing house that is monitoring our clients' risk at all times, but you also should be cognizant of where you're at, and you never want to take on a position on more than you can handle. Right? So since we've launched Bitcoin futures and the Ether futures, and now these micro Bitcoin futures, we've seen all these different trader types come into our markets and use the cryptocurrency derivatives in various ways. And so here I've broken it down by the trader type, the primary use, and secondary use. So we're seeing pension funds trade cryptocurrency derivatives for asset allocation diversification, but also to hedge their cash holdings. Some of these pension funds are actually holding physical Bitcoin or Ether. We're seeing hedge funds trade our products for their long short strategies, but they're also hedging physical holdings as well, or their cash holdings. Prop firms are trading them for market making, but also to go long short. We're seeing the retail active traders speculate to go long short. We're also seeing some retail traders, now that we have the Bitcoin or the micro contract, they're using these products to hedge some of their cash position. Also, we're seeing some good retail activity on the options side. Options traders are using our products to go long short. They're also using them to write options, so to create those income strategies where they're writing options. Bitcoin miners use them for hedge strategies to go long short, and corporates are hedging Bitcoin receivables, and they're using them for treasury management. And so that concludes our micro Bitcoin futures presentation for today. But if you have any questions on these contracts, you can go to cmegroup.com. If you search micro Bitcoin, you will find all the information that we talked about today, including specs, margin rates, and how those markets are performing. You can see real-time volume updates on our site as well to see how much volume and how these products are growing.
Awesome.
So I'll pause there if we have any questions.
Yeah, there's a couple. One is yes, EdgeClear does offer Ether futures as well. Ether futures, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's 50 times the spot rate, right? Is notional. So second question would be, is there any timeline for the Ether micro contract to make it a little easier for customers to be able to trade it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. At this point, we don't have a timeline for micro Ether. The way that it typically works is that we'll launch the standard contract, we'll launch a smaller contract. In this case, the micro contract. After that contract is traded for a good amount of time. So in this case, we launched the micro contract almost, 3+ years after we launched the standard contract. So I would expect at some point for us to take a real serious look at a micro ether contract. I just don't know when. But I would expect maybe the options to come first on the ether contract before the micro. But you never know.
Got it. Can you go over the slide that covers the fees versus the cash market again?
Yep. Okay. So when you're looking at a Bitcoin spot market and the transaction costs that you can incur through that market, the cash exchanges typically charge a percentage based on the notional that you're trading. So if you were to trade the equivalent of one micro Bitcoin futures contract, which remember is 1/10 of one Bitcoin. So if you were to trade the equivalent of that in the cash market, when the cash market is trading at $62,000 a Bitcoin, which is $6,200 worth of Bitcoin when you're the equivalent to the micro contract. So if you wanted to purchase $6,200 worth of cash Bitcoin, that exchange on the cash side may charge a percentage. And in this scenario, one of the more prevalent Bitcoin cash exchanges out there charges 0.5% on your transaction. So it's 6,200 times 1.5%. That is $92. So what we're showing here is it will cost you $6,292 to gain exposure to $6,200 worth of Bitcoin. So those transaction fees can add up on the spot exchange side. Whereas when you're looking at the futures market, we have a standard exchange fee for non-members, which is $2.50. There is a standard NFA fee, which is 2 cents. And then on top of that, you're looking at the commission that your brokerage firm charges. So it's $2.50 plus the NFA, $2.52 plus whatever commissions your broker charges.
Got it. Cool. Thanks for that. Do you have any, like, let's say we're long Bitcoin and short Ether futures. Does the CME have any spread credits available for such a trade? Yeah.
Yes, very, very good question. So for all of our cryptocurrency contracts, there are spread credits and margin offsets that are available. And I believe you can find that on our website. Mm-hmm. If not, what I can do, Max, after this is dig it up and I can send it over to you if you want to distribute it or get it to that person that asked. Work with you that way.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Does anyone else have any questions? We're pushing an hour, so don't want to keep you all too long. Let's see here. Looks like we're good. I'm going to real quickly make myself presenter. That's our contact information if anyone needs it. John, thank you for coming on and talking to our group about Bitcoin,
Absolutely.
micro Bitcoins. Really appreciate it. We love working with the CME. So thanks again for coming on board. Thanks for everyone to take their afternoon on a bright and shiny Tuesday, hang out with us and talk about Bitcoin futures. So thank you, everyone. There will be a recording of this, and we'll hopefully talk soon. Thanks, John.
Yep. Take care, guys. Thank you.